So please send me your questions. You can send them via email to vote.a.martin@gmail.com, via my website at rjmartin.com, arjaymartin.com. There's like a web form there in the contact section, or even SMS me or call me. An SMS is probably slightly preferable in that I can then make a video about it and answer, the question that many other people would have as well. So my phone number is 0410 817 262. So I'll get on with it. So this is an email. I will just summarize the email and answer, the particular questions. So the gentleman wishes to know my thoughts on climate change, franking credits, negative gearing, and I will address climate change in a separate video. I did ask for clarification because the topic's so broad. What specifically the gentleman wanted me to talk about in regards to climate change. So that'll be done in a separate video, but I'll also add inheritance tax. So a summary is that I'm against the changes to franking credits. So I'll get into what they are in a moment. I'm also against changes to negative gearing, and also I'm against the death tax or inheritance tax. So what franking credits are, when you buy shares in a company, you own a little piece of the company, and often the companies will pay out dividends, and that's basically like a little piece of profit from the company, and they're paying their shareholders as owners of those particular shares. So with those dividends, you can have them so they haven't been taxed at all, i.e. the company hasn't paid tax on that amount of money. So they're non-franked credits or non-franked dividends. You can have partly franked dividends where some tax is being paid on it, or you can have fully franked dividends where the whole tax has already been paid on those dividends by the company, basically. So a particular change that a lot of people want in the government, in Labor and Liberal parties, and a bunch of other people as well, is that they want it so that people cannot get tax refunds on that tax paid if they didn't actually need to pay tax based on their income level. So the minimum income level in which to pay tax is $18,201. So then you'll only pay tax on the $1, and if you earn $18,200 or less per year, you don't pay tax. So an example is if someone earns, say, $10,000 on dividends that are fully franked, i.e. they've already been taxed, so they earn $10,000 and tax has already been paid on those dividends, they should receive that tax back as a cash refund, and they still aren't paying any tax because they're still under the $18,000 or $18,201 income level. So that is very important for self-funded retirees, superannuants, people in those classes of, customer, taxpayer, whatever you want to call it, and that should remain. If we have the current tax system, there are better alternatives to the current tax system. There are, transactional taxes as an example, combining that with basically Australia making money from the resources as opposed to privatized resources, privatized profits, and yeah, that'll do for that. I'm trying to keep these videos short so they're not so boring or whatever. In relation to negative gearing, that was removed back in the 80s. It didn't work, and it's ridiculous anyway, because what negative gearing is if you're renting a property out, which is an investment property, of course, because you're renting it out, then you have legitimate business expenses. So you might well be paying more in expenses than you are getting revenue based on that property, and therefore that should reduce the amount of income you're getting, so therefore reduce the amount of tax that you're getting. So I'll just make up a hypothetical example. Just say someone is paying, I don't know, $25,000 in a particular year on a property, and they're only getting $20,000 on that property, then that should reduce their income, taxable income, by $5,000 as an example. And it's legitimate business expenses, so therefore the tax should be reduced on that. So another sort of semi-related example would be, there might be two people and they're earning $100,000 a year. This particular person is, I don't know, a photographer or something like that, and they have really expensive equipment that needs servicing, replacing, etc. And just say when they set up in the first year, they've just spent $50,000 or even more. Maybe they've got large format cameras like Hasselblads or whatever, and maybe they paid $75,000 just for the camera, the back of it, and lenses, etc. But they're still getting $100,000 a year. But if they've just spent $75,000 to get that $100,000, then they've really only earned $25,000 as profit, if you want to call it profit. And then you might have someone who, I don't know, stays at home doing marketing, uses websites like freelancer.com or Odesk or something like that. They've got very minimal expenses. They might have a netbook that they're doing all this work on, and they're still earning $100,000 a year, but their expenses for that year might only be $5,000 or $10,000. And just say it's $10,000, then effectively they've earned $90,000 profit, even though people don't actually earn profit, but that's another topic. But should they pay the same amount in tax as a person that really only made $25,000? Anyway, and in relation to inheritance tax, that is completely ridiculous. Death tax, it really is. So if you're unfortunate enough to die, that the government takes a whole bunch of your money, as opposed to you being able to pass that on to your, beneficiaries, children, charities, whatever, and doing with your property what you wish when you're deceased. So there are people, I believe it's official Labor Party policy now, to introduce the death tax. And in Queensland, there was an economic boom when Joh Bjelke-Petersen actually removed the inheritance tax, and that's why the Gold Coast and region basically became like America's Florida, because retirees would move to Queensland so that when they died, inevitably, that they would not have to pay the inheritance tax. So that's my thoughts on those particular issues, and I'll make another video on some other questions. Please like, share, subscribe, consider donating your time or effort, or even some money for some last minute electronic ads like Facebook or Google ads or something like that, and have a lovely day.